moment, you know. I couldn't believe it, that in the craziness, in my deep confusion and everything that I was going through, I had this moment of clarity and brilliance that came to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, that freaking pill is new. What are the side effects? But at this point, again, I am like in my deathbed. I have put my pajamas on and stepped up to it. So I don't have the energy to get up. I don't have the energy to look. I say that to my husband, and then I just lay there and fall back asleep. I did notice my husband grabbed a device. I don't know if it was my tablet, my phone, his phone. I don't know what it was, but he began searching. Thank goodness that I have my husband. He is my freaking rock. I don't know what I would do without that man. So he wakes me back up, and he's like, that's it. We found it. That is it. He starts naming off the side effects, and I'm like, that's every single side effect, almost every single one of them is one of the side effects that I'm having. And he said, it's not the pill. It's a result from taking the pill. It's DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis. It is typically something that happens when your blood sugars are really high, and it typically happens to type 1 diabetics. It is very, very rare that it ever occurs in a type 2 diabetic. And it is extremely rare for it to happen to a type 2 diabetic who has controlled blood sugars. Now, my husband and I, we're not doctors. We do not have medical background. I went to college for an RN, but I never graduated. We, we're nobody. So, of course, we have to make a doctor's appointment in order for us to get this confirmed. Now, I forgot to mention that the previous day, Wednesday, when my husband came home, we did make an appointment to go see the doctor because, again, something's really wrong with me. We had an occurrence previous to my surgery where I was not doing very well. It's a TMI kind of situation. So I went to the ER and I ended up paying a lot for going because they didn't consider it an emergency. So we didn't want to go to the ER before we actually saw a regular doctor that told us to go to the ER. So that's why we made a doctor's appointment instead of going to the hospital right away, which is sad. But, yeah. Thursday morning rolls around. It's time to go to the doctor. We are so positive that we've nailed on the head what's wrong with me. And we just have to go explain it to the doctor, see what she says, move forward from there. So we go to the doctor. My husband has some errands that he has to run afterwards. We got this whole thing planned out. We know how we're going to handle it. We go in and we explain everything to the doctor. And she kind of looks at me and she's just not taking me seriously. She's like, your breath doesn't smell like fruit. Your blood sugar's fine. She's like, you're going to be okay. Just, walk it off pretty much. She's like, we can check your urine for ketones, but your breath doesn't smell like fruit. I think you're fine. And now, like I said, it's a really rare form of DKA. It's actually called EDKA for euglycemic ketoacidosis. And, or euglycemic diabetic ketoacidosis. And again, it's something that is really rare. It doesn't really happen to type 2 diabetics. I'm not a type 1. It doesn't happen to people who have blood sugars that are normal in range. At the time of the visit, my blood sugar was 130. And, I tried to explain to her too. I was like, this is not, I haven't ate in like 3 days. And this is day 4. And, I was like, I'm drinking a lot, like a lot. I feel dizzy and confused and tired and all this. And she's just like, no. she checks my urine. She's like, your ketones are a little bit high, but I'm not really worried about it, and it is not abnormal for people to have a little high ketones when they eat such low carb, low sugar food. So she's just kind of looking at me like, no, you're fine. And my husband's like, okay, we're both kind of frustrated, but we're like, all right, maybe we're wrong. And my husband's like, well, I still have to run these errands. Come with me to my work. And he's like, we're going to stop at home and we're going to get your protein shake because you have to eat. You have to eat. And I'm like, okay. And we start driving to my husband's work. It takes about 45 minutes to get to where he works. And I'm sipping on this protein shake. And I get it like half gone, right? By the time we get there, 45 minutes later. And we're on our way home. And we're almost home. So it's like another 45 minutes back. And my husband's like, you gotta finish the protein shake. I'm like, I'm trying. And he's like, just slam it, baby. Like a college frat boy. He's like, slam it. You'll be okay. Just slam it. And we'll get you some real food. I'll get you something you want, And I'm like, I can't do it, baby. I can't slam it. And he's like, come on, you can do it. And he's just kind of coaching me. I'm like, okay, baby, for you, I'm going to do this thing, right? And I got this cinnamon roll protein shake, and I go and I chug it. And I'm like I can feel the food come up in my throat and then swallow it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose it. I'm so sick. And I never throw up. And I know that I'm gonna puke. So I grab the first thing that I can see in front of me, which is a manila envelope. Bad choice. Really bad choice. Don't ever grab the manila envelope. It is not a solid sound puke bag. And I lose it. I puke protein shake up in the manila envelope. And it is literally like the exact same as it went down. It's cinnamon protein shake. And it starts to leak out of the side of the manila envelope. It was awful. And it got on my pants. And I'm like in tears now because I am really sick. No one's taking me seriously. I've now puked, which I know for some people is like something you do when you're sick. But for me, like I never puke. So I'm like, this is when my husband looks at me and he's like, we're going to the ER because now it's serious. My husband knows I don't puke for anything. Didn't puke with either of my pregnancies. Didn't puke after having my kids. Didn't puke for my surgery, for my DS. Do not puke. So my husband's like, we're going to go home and pull in the driveway. You're going to change your clothes. Get the protein shake out of the car. And then we're going to the ER. So I struggle my way up the stairs because my bedroom is on the 3rd floor of our house. So being dizzy and disoriented and unable to balance, I'm like struggling to get up the stairs. Change my clothes. Get back in the car. I'm ready to go. I am just so unbelievably sick at this point. So my husband takes me to this little ER that is in our town. And it's like a sister hospital of the bigger hospital. So we go in and I sit down in the front and they're like, here's your paperwork. And I look at my husband and I'm like, can he fill it out? Because I can't even see. I cannot see the paperwork. It's just blurry fuzzy. And so my husband fills out the paperwork and they're like, do you need to walk? Are you going to walk back or do you need a wheelchair? And I'm like, honestly, I need a wheelchair because I can't balance. I can barely walk. At this point, I am so sick. I don't know what's going on. And they put me in a wheelchair and they wheel me back into the ER. And my husband and I are so incredibly frustrated because we know, it's the EDKA. That's what's wrong with me. And like all the water that I've been drinking is because it dehydrates your body. It causes you to not be able to process the water that you drink, which is why I was peeing so much, is it was literally going straight through me, and then I was just peeing it out. So I haven't really had water for days. This is why I'm so dehydrated. This is why my tongue is like sandpaper in my mouth. I've never been so thirsty in my whole life, you guys. Like, it was like being in a desert, but it was so much worse than that because I could drink the water, you know? It's so crazy to be able to drink so much water but never quench your thirst. It must be like what it's like to be out at sea. You know how, like, you can't drink seawater because it just dehydrates you more. It'll make you crazy and you'll do really horrible, crazy things. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you should check it out because seawater will kill you. So that's basically what I am experiencing. I am so thirsty, but nothing I'm doing is quenching that thirst. And I have all these other symptoms that are just taxing me physically to the breaking point. And the ER doctor walks in, and the second he walks in, he looks at us and he goes, "You reek of ketones." So the ER doctor comes in and he's like, "What's going on?" And, you know, we kind of tell him what's going on, and he says, "We got to check your blood sugar." And I tell him, "I have a CGM. I can tell you what it is right now." And he lets us know that they have to take our blood sugar there, but he'll look at what my blood sugar is on my CGM, and he just looks at us and he goes, "You reek of ketones." And I can't even explain to you the feeling that I had because, you know, the previous doctor had completely shut us down. And now I have someone here who is like validating how I feel. And, you know, he looks at my blood sugar and realizes it's in a normal range. And he's like, "You have euglycemic ketoacidosis." And I'm, you know, still got the whole confusion thing going on. I look at my husband and I'm just like, "What?" And my husband's like, "Yeah, baby, EDKA. That's what we think's wrong with you." And I was like, you know, yay, someone's finally taking this seriously. I'm going to get some help. And we told him that we had talked to the previous doctor, and she's not my GP, she's my GP's boss. So I was actually thinking that she was going to be able to help me, but she shot us down. And we told the ER doctor, but we talked to, you know, the general practitioner across the street, and she was like, "No, your ketones aren't high," because she had checked my urine. And he's like, "You can't check your urine." So people, if they tell you that they want to check your ketones in your urine for something like DKA, no, you have to check the blood. They took my labs. EDKA can cause a lot of really terrible things. It messes with your body's CO2 levels, it messes with the potassium level, it can cause organ failure, your kidneys, your liver, it can cause cerebral edema, it can cause brain damage, it will kill you. So what normally happens with like a type 1 diabetic is their blood sugar goes really high and then they go into a coma and that's how they die. So because I had normal blood sugar, which is where the E part of the EDKA comes in, I was awake for the whole thing. And it was one hell of a ride. So they get my blood work back and he's like, "Yeah, you have moderately high ketones. We're going to have to transfer you to the major hospital and admit you to the ICU unit." And I was so upset. Like, I heard him coming down the hall, and the nurse guy said, "I know where she's spending her New Year's," and I knew right then and there things were not going to go good for me. And He's like, we're going to have you transferred to the major hospital. I'm like, I don't understand why I can't stay here. And he's like, we aren't outfitted to treat you here, and we don't do overnight stays here, so you have to go to the ICU at the major hospital, and we'll have an ambulance transfer you over. And at the time, my husband was so worried about me that he left our keys in the car. It's my car, and it's a keyless car, and he just left the keys in the dash. And it was a hell of New Year's for me. So 2020 decided it was going to have one last ditch attempt to take my life. And my daughter's birthday, like I said, she's also the New Year's baby. So it's not just the day we ring in the new year, it's also the day we ring in my kid's birthday. So I'm upset because I have to stay in the hospital, and I'm not going to be there for New Year's, and I'm going to be alone because of, the COVID precautions, and can't have a visitor for more than 45 minutes, and it's my kid's birthday, and here I am going to the hospital. So I get packed up in the ambulance, and non-scale victory, though, they had to tighten the belt on the gurney instead of loosening it. So I remember that in the dazed confusion. I was like, oh, yay. And they take me to the big hospital, and I pretty much went right to sleep. But I also have a fear of needles, which is the biggest cosmic joke because I am a diabetic. So every hour they're stabbing me because they want to check my blood sugar. So the way that you treat DKA is by administering insulin. But because I have EDKA and my blood sugar is already good, they also had to hook me up to glucose. So I have the insulin bag, I have the glucose bag, so they counteract each other so that my sugar is not going too low or too high. So they want to monitor that. I also have saline that I'm hooked up to try to help combat the dehydration, and who knows what else I had. And I fell asleep. And then I woke up and the nurse was like, your husband wants to talk to you. And I'm like, why is he not calling my cell phone? And the way she said it, like when someone tells you they have to tell you something and you can already tell that it's bad news, but they want to brace you for it. And you're just kind of like, I already know something's going on. So I take the phone and I'm like, what's up? And my husband's like, don't freak out. Someone stole our car from the hospital parking lot. I tell you what, I can't catch a break. And I'm like, that's my car though. I love that car. I don't drive a Ferrari or anything. I have a Kia Optima, but that's my baby, And so I'm just distraught. I'm like, not only am I in the hospital on New Year's, gonna be here the morning of my kid's birthday, but someone also stole my car. And my husband's like, I noticed there was another car in the parking lot that was the same kind of car as ours, and I'm wondering if they just took our car by mistake. And I'm just so, tired and exhausted, and I cannot believe it. I know I'm confused, but I understood what he said. I just couldn't fathom the fact that all this was happening. And so my husband tells me that there was a similar car in the parking lot and that he thinks that maybe they took our car by mistake. And I'm thinking, how does that happen? But he had told the security guard what he thought happened. And I guess eventually the security guard mentioned it to the police officer that was there. And my husband got to ride in the back of the police car over to this individual's house because apparently they had a family member that was in the hospital, and they sent like a friend or family member over to get their vehicle, and when they got in our car, they assumed it was the right car because the car started, because it's keyless and our key was in there. So my husband got to go retrieve our car from this stranger who was probably incredibly embarrassed that they stole our car. And then the cop drove them back to the other car to take the right car back. So I did end up getting my car back, so I'm very excited about that. I spent the entire night in there, and the next day, most of the next day. Eventually I got released later. Like, I basically begged. I was like, come on, it is my kid's birthday. You gotta let me go. And eventually they did let me go. It took 2 weeks to recover from. Like, I could not believe how much it really messed me up. Like, I still had, like, the balance issues, and my vision was just kind of messed up. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't, like, fuzzy. It was, like, jumpy, if that makes sense. And the dehydration, like, rehydrating my body was crazy, too. So I got out of the hospital New Year's Day. So, let's see, that would have been that Friday. That Friday afternoon is when I left. So, next Tuesday rolled around, and I did my weigh-in. I only lost half a pound. But, again, I didn't eat for 4 days. And when you don't eat, your body goes into starvation mode. But it gets worse. It was really depressing for me, because the next week I put on, so the 12th of January, I put on 3.8 pounds. And I talked to BMI, and I talked to my different doctors and everything, and they assured me that I gained so much weight that week because it was water. So I was so dehydrated that I had lost a lot of water weight, and so I was putting that water back into my body. Also, I started my period that week as well, so there's that. Which, it broke my heart, though. I'm like, oh my gosh, not only have I stalled, but I gained almost 4 pounds. But my body did go through some really traumatic things, and I kind of have to take it easy on myself and not be as hard, because I almost died. And it's really apparent, too, to me, because my family treats me, like my mother and my husband treat me really weird lately. My husband spent 2 weeks after it happened smelling my breath all the time, because he told me that it was such a good, sweet smell that he had smelled, and he doesn't want to ever do it again. And so he just kept smelling my breath to make sure that I wasn't going back into EDKA. And my mother was like acting really weird too. She's like, I want to put you in a plastic bubble. And I was like telling me to rest all the time, and don't go here and don't go there, and just relax. And I'm like, I spent like 4 days doing nothing but sleeping because I was dying, and now I'm being told to sleep all the time. It just blows my mind. But my family is starting to like ease the grip up a little bit. My mom hasn't been freaking out as much, and my husband is not freaking out as much, which I appreciate. In fact, one day he went up to my daughter, I think to hug her or something, and my daughter actually thought that he was going to smell her breath because he'd been doing it to me for 2 weeks. And yeah, so I was really disappointed over the last week, because I had put on, weight. Like, I was down to 272 pounds, and then I went back up to 276 pounds ish. And I don't know, because when you're going through this weight loss thing, it's the mind games, so it was depressing for me. And I had hold on to that weight mostly all this week, but I just weighed in this morning, and I came out at 1.6 pounds lost. So I'm headed in the right direction again. And I know it's really hard too because I've had a really hard time eating. Like even before this happened, I was having a hard time. And since it's happened, like, first of all, protein drinks are so hard to drink, even more than they were before because I puked up that one. And I'm like, don't want nothing to do with the cinnamon protein shake right now. And that was my favorite one. And protein shakes, for some reason, turn me off really hard. So do the chewy things. I have 2 more weeks of these chewy things, and then I'm getting pills and just forsaking the chewies. And yeah, it's just been rough. So I've been avoiding drinking the protein shakes a lot. I did get some Gene Pro to try. Let me know if you've tried it, what you think of it. It's been shipping for 2 weeks now, so I don't know when it's going to be here, but I really wish it would get here. I have had really bad nausea since the whole experience. Like, I had nausea before, you know, but ever since the whole Jardiance thing, my nausea has been crazy. So BMI, my doctor, Dr. Cottom, prescribed me some of the Zolfram. So I take those like 4 times a day to try to make it easier for me to eat. Today I'm doing really good. I'm excited because I'm at 900 calories right now and I still need to eat my dinner, which means I'm going to make the calorie goal today and not be in starvation mode, so my body will want to lose some more weight. The whole starvation mode thing just blows my mind because I can only eat so much because my tummy was made little and I've never been like a binge eating kind of person. But then if I don't eat enough, my body holds on to everything because it thinks we're starving to death. And I cannot convince my body that we're not. So it's just a constant struggle to do anything. I did drink a protein shake today. I'm trying, you guys, really trying. So hopefully next week I will have more loss because I've been in this range now for 3 weeks and it sucks. I lost 12.3 pounds the week before, which again was probably not great because that was when I started taking the other pill. So what it does is it causes your body to not be able to process sugar, so you pee it out, which is great unless you don't eat very much. I think it was probably not a good idea to put me on that pill because of my surgery, and she knew about the surgery, so I don't know, but it was a bad situation. And so I can never take SGLT2 inhibitors ever again. It causes your body to not take in water or salt. Water follows salt. It's just a bad situation. It's really bad. If you're curious and know more about it, I would look it up. So it's really hard to explain all the ins and outs of it, and it's very complicated, rare illness for it to happen, and it's crazy. I cannot believe it. And it just took me so long to bounce back from it. Like, I was so tired for the 2 weeks following it. I still haven't even played a video game since it happened. Like, I just don't have the energy to. Getting enough energy just to do this video was super hard. I kept putting it off. And yeah, I spent a long time trying to rehydrate myself, and the vision and the balance and all that took a long time. And the craziest part is my blood sugars. My blood sugars went freaking nuts after I quit the Jardiance. Because, I mean, as soon as they found out what was wrong with me, they're like, you can't take that anymore. Like, ever. And so I stopped taking it, and I started taking the glipizide again, and it took me 2 weeks, week and a half. Like, my blood sugars were 200 to 300. Like, they were going nuts afterwards, and I was freaking out because my blood sugars had been good, and I don't really eat carbs or sugars, so I'm like, what the hell is going on? What is wrong with me? And my husband, of course, researched it because I was freaking out again. And apparently it's very normal for your blood sugars to be out of whack after stopping Jardiance, and it just can cause so many problems. And it takes a long time to recover from being an EDKA. I actually took that Monday off of work that I was supposed to go back to work, which was unfortunate because I lost my holiday pay for New Year's, because that's usually a paid holiday for me, because I'm supposed to work my following shift from the holiday. And I couldn't because I had just gotten out of the ICU and I was sleeping all the time and just trying to like eat again, and it was really a hard struggle. So I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, because it is really awful, and I feel really bad for like the type 1 diabetics who have it happen to them more than once. Although I kind of wish that I would have been unconscious, because it was, being awake for the whole thing was just awful. It was really horrible. So, I believe they're called SLGT2 inhibitors. Yeah, never take it again. So, I did talk to my endocrinologist just the other day, and I used to be on metformin, but he used to give me diarrhea. Sorry, TMI. But since surgery, I've been kind of constipated. These are just the cold hard facts of what the surgery does to you. And so I told her, because when I quit, because she told me to quit, I quit for 3 weeks. I lost 4.9 pounds, and then 12.3 pounds, which some of that 12.3 may have been because of the Jardiance, but I don't think much of it was, because I remember weighing myself earlier in that week, because I cheat. I weigh myself in the middle of the week when I'm not supposed to, because I'm kind of obsessive about the losing weight thing. Not a great habit, sorry. But I had already lost like 10 pounds, so quitting the glipizide really did help me, and I'm sure the Jardiance didn't hurt me either. It was working really well. Like, my blood sugars were great, and I was losing a lot of weight, because it causes your body to not process sugars and pee them out, and it causes your body to break down fat really quickly. That's what causes your blood to be acidic. So your body breaks down the fat at a really alarmingly fast rate for fuel, since you can't absorb sugars. And then what happens is your kidneys, I believe, process that fat into ketones that they put into the blood for energy. But because it all happens at such an alarming rate, your blood gets too acidic, and that's what pushes you into the EDKA. So I'm hoping if I start the metformin that it won't cause that big of a problem with me this time after surgery, and it doesn't affect your body the same way that glipizide does, where it's kind of like an insulin, where it causes you to hold on to everything. And maybe I'll start having really good weight loss again, because, losing 12.3 pounds in a week was amazing, and I was really happy about it until the part where I almost died from it. So won't be doing that again. So I think now, in hindsight, I'm always going to be kind of afraid when I start a new medicine that I've never been on before, because, like, I've told you guys a little bit about my history and some of the really hard things that I've been through in my life, and to be taken down by a tiny pill, no, that is not how I'm going out. So I'm going to be really leery anytime I start a new medicine. I'm really going to look at those side effects. Because you always think things like, that'll never happen to me. But, yeah, that took me on a ride, and I was knocking on heaven's door, and I don't want to ever go through that again. It's just awful. I can't imagine having type 1 diabetes and having it happen more than once in my lifetime, because when I was researching like the recovery part, because I was still feeling really awful for like a good week and a half afterwards, there were some people that I read that have been through it more than once, and that's just horrible. I can't imagine. It really takes it out of you. So, that's my story. That is why I spent New Year's in the ICU. My daughter turned 16 the day that I got out. I cannot believe I have a 16-year-old. My son just turned 7 yesterday. Both my kids are January babies. I love me some January babies. So if you're a January baby, you got my heart. My husband wants to have one more. I'm hoping we don't have a January baby again, because Christmas, baby, this is expensive. So hopefully we'll have to plan the next one better. But yeah, I am hoping to continue having really great weight loss. And now you're all caught up on where I've been. And I will be making a video next week. So thanks for watching. I'm sorry this was such a long-winded video, but it was really dramatic and I went through a lot of things. And I wanted to make sure that I explained everything that I could to the best of my non-medical abilities, because I don't want this to happen to anyone else, because it's awful. And I know that a lot of people who are going to have this surgery or similar weight loss surgeries could be diabetic, because that's just part of what happens when you're heavy. So it's a very real possibility that you could be in the same situation as me. So just want to make sure that everyone is safe, because I care about you and I do not want you to go through what I went through, because it's awful. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.